Hey all, welcome to Share Track. This is Raj here, and today I have with me two guests. One is Kumar Natarajan, another is Shailesh Sirsikar. They have been a long-time friends of mine, and Kumar is actually my younger brother. And Shailesh and Kumar both are in India while I'm in Toronto. I have my own opinions on what is happening in India, and I have been making some videos for you here and there. Today, I thought let us do a ground check, ground reality on how things look like from people in India. And the topic for discussion today is going to be the recent assassination. Maybe I should call it a murder rather than an assassination of gangster and politician Atiq Ahmed and his brother, and all the things surrounding that. And there are a few other topics also we might discuss in the future, which are around what's happening in Delhi with Kejriwal and all that. But this is our first Zoom conference call in which we are going to have this discussion and bring it to you. So we're getting started with that. Kumar, welcome, and Shailesh, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Shailesh and Kumar, I've been looking at things from here. I'm reading CNN, I'm reading New York Times, and I'm reading BBC. So the portrayal out here seems to be like this guy is a politician who got assassinated. And by the way, he had some criminal records, and law and order is going out of control in Uttar Pradesh. And things are not looking good. I know for sure because I also try to read Indian media and get some information. I think that's not the whole story. So which one of you would like to get started in educating me about what's happening in India? Shailesh, would you like to go first? Or?
Yeah, sure. So as we already anticipated, BBC or CNN or most of these Western media houses, they are somehow biased against India, and they tend to give some twisted kind of news articles. And the biggest twist here is that this person who has a criminal history of almost last 30 years and who has about 100 cases against him has been portrayed as if he was a person who has been made a scapegoat in this particular scenario. So that's the biggest joke here, because Atiq Ahmed, everyone knows, was the biggest mafia don in Uttar Pradesh state in India. And this particular government, though, did not want to kind of eliminate him, just bring him to justice. Unfortunately, the police system was either lax or they had some kind of internal leak of information that this person is going to be transported, and he was given open access to the assassins. Very unfortunate.
Yeah. So Kumar, what do you think?
I think it's purely politics in local as well as international. That's how I would look at it. Because if you look at Uttar Pradesh, it is the biggest state in India. And unless it develops economically, India cannot develop as fast as it can. And whenever a country like India, with the as of now, I believe the biggest population in the world, grows and starts economically developing, it is a threat to other nations globally. So the point is to find out as to the negative aspects, so that some pressure can be built up, the economic growth can be stalled to an extent for whatever reasons and contributions. So if you look at the current scenario, what has happened is, till recently, some 10 years back, if you look at it, the state Uttar Pradesh was not ruled by Bharatiya Janata Party. It was ruled by other parties. You had Samajwadi, Bahujan Samaj Party, Congress, all of them who had ruled that state for a long period of time. And during that period of time, the people like Atiq and others were the muscle power as well as the financiers for the elections, because they extort money. They actually give out slips, pink slips and white slips. Pink slip is up to 5 lakh contribution, and white slip is for more than 5 lakh contributions. And these were money which was taken from businessmen, from people who are doing things. And I can relate to it because, having grown up in Bombay, we had criminals like Dawood who used to extort money. So what does it do to an economy? It stops people from buying houses, buying bigger cars, buying costly items, because the minute you do that, these people will come and start extorting money. So you don't want to come in the face of it. So you don't, economically, there is lack of development. Now, the first thing that BJP did with Mr. Yogi when they started out in Uttar Pradesh was to make a very clear stance that we want economic development, which was the platform on which they came to power. And if they have to come to power, then businessmen and the population need to be secure. So law and order was a major plank on which they came on board. So they started very strict action, not only against criminals, but also against police personnel who were behaving like uniformed goons. So all of that was taken into account, and they started taking very strict action. And they were the first state where the easiest way to create discomfort for a government is by creating riots, damaging property, damaging government property, and then giving it a communal twist, saying it was from this side or it was from that side. This government was the first, which is now known as a bulldozer government, because it says, forget it. You damage, you pay the money, or we damage and take your property and auction it and recover the money. And if something balance is there, you still have to pay it. So
there's a cost for riot.
There's a cost for riot, and that reduced the number of rioting from the time when they took over till now. So it has become very difficult to involve in that kind of a thing. So that gives some kind of a comfort to the population. Now, after the second term, they are looking at really giving a good pitch. They want to make it a $1 trillion economy. They cannot have these kind of people in their state and think of going to 1 trillion. Because legally, if you want to make 1 trillion, these people will take 25% of it and make it illegal. So given that kind of a background, it is a necessity for the current government to make sure that these kind of unsavory elements are eliminated or taken out of the picture or made totally useless, so that they don't have a teeth to disrupt the progress that is being made. Now, the sad part is these kind of elements across India do have an ability, even if they are imprisoned, to run their fiefdom.
From inside the jail.
From inside the jail, which happens any part of India. Now, as Indians, we know it happens because we come across people, we talk to people, and we know that these things happen. It doesn't directly impact us because we are not on the radar or we are not of the level where they would like to take anything from us. But then the general population at times have a problem.
Yes.
Because they would like to have better things, and those better things will not come, because generally in the economy, if the better things have to come, those who will bring it in, they will be targeted.
Right. Right.
So given that kind of a background at the ground level, in the general population part of it, yes, it is a good thing that has happened, irrespective of what has happened. For example, if somebody, it was not the police encounter, somebody shot him, fine. There will be an investigation, they will find out who did it, what did it, and they will be punished. Whether it is correct or wrong, there is a judicial process which follows and which you can take it up with. It may take 10 years, 15 years, but it will get resolved. It is not for common political representatives who are elected for 5 years to say that, no, this is wrong. There is a judicial process who are responsible to say that it is wrong or right, or what is the evidence, how it happened. They have put a judicial commission. They have put a committee to investigate all of this, a retired judge. So all that will come out. But the fact is, 2024, you are going to have elections.
That's why all these things are coming up.
This becomes a point of discussion. So for the past 2 to 3 days, Varli, this has been on the news, ignoring everything else. There's a big corruption case going on in Delhi, and the Delhi government has predominantly had the media time because they do advertise a lot. But unfortunately, at a time when they want media to cover them, this thing happened, and this is being covered by media and not them.
No,
so even if you look at opposition,
this has become more like cockroaches climbing on each other or crabs climbing on each other, because you have the Amritpal issue where the police is trying to catch him. They are not able to catch him. Again, Kejriwal is involved in that. To hide that, he started talking about other things. And then when there was a pushback, he started talking about the Prime Minister's certificate, so that people don't look at all the people arrested, the ministers arrested from his cabinet. And then when he really wanted the spotlight to be on him, when he was getting interrogated by FBI, this killing happened. You're right. So the media went away to different side. And if these people don't have money, whether it's in Uttar Pradesh or in Delhi, then they don't get the oxygen, because all the people who give them the oxygen are after the money. You give money to the media, then it will give you coverage. You give money to the workers, then they'll come for the dharna or protest. So I think that's what is happening out there. So, and Shailesh, you have been a business person and you have lived in India the longest. Like Kumar was in Dubai for almost 20 years. He's been back only for 2 or 3 years now. I don't know, maybe 2 years. So you would have a very good idea. I heard this story that this Atiq Ahmed guy, he took the property of one of Nehru's relatives in Prayagraj. She owned a big theater in a very posh locality. So he sent his goons and captured that. And then she sent a message to Delhi. I think at that time, Manmohan Singh was the prime minister. That's the story goes. And then they intervened and he gave back the keys of the property to her, to the Nehru relative in Prayagraj. And he told her, this is the first time I've stepped back on a property. If you had told me that you have that relation, then I would not have taken it. And then he went away. So do you find this credible, or is it some fringe media talking about some urban legend or, a rumor?
I wouldn't want to get into these stories, mainly because, as you rightly said, these could be just fabricated ones.
Right.
At the same time, what the fact remains is that this was a person who had killed a DM, that is district magistrate. Now, a
Wow.
district magistrate is a IS cadre civil services person. And in India, so far, fortunately, however big the mafia goons could be, they hadn't had the audacity of touching either the civil servant or the police officers. So they could, run amok the civilians, but never ever anyone had touched a civil servant. I mean, this was a bit exaggeration, never ever, because in Bihar, in Jharkhand, there are big mining mafias who have, yes, killed a few of these civil servants as well. But it is a rare instance and it is treated as a big setback for the mafia, and there are repercussions. But this particular Atiq Ahmed case was an exception, that he killed a district magistrate, and the Mulayam Singh government, in spite of all the protest by the IS lobby in Uttar Pradesh and from the central government, acted nil, zero, nada, against this particular goon. And
No action.
there was no action. Of course, this was the biggest and most notorious case. Apart from that, he has multiple murders and extortion cases and property confiscations and various other things. And of course, he recently confessed that he had been regularly getting arms and ammunition from ISI through Punjab porous border, and it were being dropped by drones. And he
Wow.
also led the police to a large cache of arms in the jungles near Prayagraj. And that is how I think some politicians, perhaps from certain parties who had given him political stance, were feeling threatened, and they must have executed this particular assassination.
Right. Because if he started disclosing and spilling the beans, then they will also be implicated. And
Absolutely.
that would not be good, especially with the elections coming around. They need some time to repair the damage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So actually, the hue and cry that is happening, that law and order is gone in the country. There is this professor in Delhi University, I forget his name. I was reading a news article. He says that with this kind of assassination in front of press and police and everything, the very fabric of law and order is gone. And I am thinking that there are these ordinary people out there whose property he had taken. Like there is this story of a woman which is circulating. Her husband was disappeared. She doesn't know if he's dead or alive. His body has not been found. And then they shot her and her kids. She has 3 bullet wounds in her back, and then they took her property. And then there is another guy. It is said that this I heard from a retired police official on one of the video channels. And he said that Atiq's people had skinned a person alive and then thrown his body on the road and called the police station to say, take the body. They were so audacious, and they did all those things. And at that time, law and order was not under threat. And this guy called Gudu Muslim, the guy who threw the bomb, he was in jail. And the politicians from Samajwadi Party, I believe, they went and bought him back. And since then, he became a part of this Atiq's gang, because Atiq intervened and got him released from jail. And since then, he has been his trusted lieutenant. And also, as you said earlier, Shailesh, that the IAS officer was killed. And despite the IAS association protesting, Mulayam Singh Yadav still did not take any action. What is the message it sends? It sends the message that, rule of law does not exist in this land. And these guys will do what they do. And you just comply. If you try to uphold the rule of law, you'll be killed, and I'm not going to do anything about it. That was the message.
True.
And if that was not the breakdown of rule of law, then how come now it's a breakdown of rule of law? Because National Human Rights Commission has also raised issues. Where were they at that time? When 1,100 crores, I think that is the low-end estimate of all the properties that Atiq Ahmed had, amassed. And we did MBA. I think we graduated in 89. And I don't think any of our colleagues have got 1,100 crores. After studying so much, following the rule of law, using marketing principles and everything. And even after going abroad, we don't have 1,100 crores. And this guy made that kind of money by taking all these things. So that's the portrayal that is being shown out here through the media. So can you just educate our viewers? What's the real situation there? I mean, Kumar, do you want to go off first?
Yeah, if I may. See, basically, it's a question of marketing and where the budget is. For example, if you look at let's take it as a product. India is the product. And you have a competitor. There are 2 competing business houses which wants to take over India. So one wants to retain it, one wants to take over. So now they need to create the right kind of a media environment so that the general consensus on who should have it becomes clear. Now, the issue is, if you look at India's economic development, if you look at India's law and order situation, if you look at the unemployment level drop, if you look at the way the currency is growing, if you look at the kind of foreign relations that India has built up, if you look at the Make in India campaign, if you look at defense, how we are making it in-house, more self-sufficient, wherein we have started exporting defense equipment. And I think last fiscal year, it was around 15,000 crores for the first time that contributed to the GDP by way of export of defense. Now,
Right.
This is a threat to many people. And let's look at what it was before and what is happening as citizens of India. If we look at, there are 2 phases that you can look at, pre-Modi, post-Modi. So before Modi, what was the situation? After Modi, what is the situation? Because it's the 2 different parties and the way they come about it. The plank on which Modi came in first was governance paralysis. Because no decisions were being taken, nothing was being done, nothing was being implemented. That was the paralysis part which they said we will get rid of. That was the plank on which they pitched themselves up. And they came into power. And then the next time they said further development grows with everybody in hand and everything. And they could say that.
Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas.
Yeah, because they had done the, the base work for it by way of Jan Dhan accounts, direct benefit transfer, etc., etc., etc. So they were actually taking everybody together by making sure that If they send 1 rupee, it reaches the person whom it has to reach and not only 15 paise, which is what was actually accepted by the previous government previously. Saying if we send 1 rupee, only 15 paise reaches them.
That was Rajiv Gandhi.
That
He
was
said, if I
Rajiv
send
Gandhi.
1 rupee, 5 paisa reaches the village.
Yeah, so he solved that problem. He actually solved that problem. But then who benefited? It was not the people who got the 85 paisa in between. It was the people who was getting 15 now got 1.
Yeah.
And they are the ones who vote. And are they been happy? Yes, they are happy. But what can be said about this? No, you are making Aadhaar mandatory. You are making accounts mandatory. You are getting, people are not educated enough to manage a banking account. All those things are being said. Those were said very clearly. And how can this happen? There will still be this, that, etc. Okay, it will happen. But given the previous system, if there was 80% leakage, here we may say 20% leakage is there. But still, this is better than 80% leakage, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there is a common consensus that previously we had fantastic policies, fantastic ideas, fantastic thought processes, how to grow the economy, what to do for the population. Everything was great. For example, your Manrega was started in the prior period. Your Aadhaar was started in the prior period. PAN was from the prior period. Everything was from the prior period. But the implementation was not up to the mark. The key factors where it can be misused were never plugged because that did not serve their purpose. But from this point onwards, when post-Modi part, you look at it, actually they are looking at making sure that all those loopholes
Structural
are being
reforms.
taken care of.
Yeah.
And they don't play a small game. They may play a bigger game. But they play it in a very professional manner, not an unprofessional manner. They don't do things that because we are so and so and we can get away with it. They may also be resorting to unscrupulous means, but they do it in a very professional manner that it's very difficult to catch them. I'm not saying they are doing it, but nothing has come out. If you look at 8 years and compare that with the previous 8 years, there's been hardly any case. And I'll explain the selective reporting about national human rights and everything that has come up. If you just follow the Twitter handle of ED, just follow the Twitter handle of ED. It's a simple thing, right? And if you look at it, every day morning or during the day, full day, they keep highlighting on their Twitter where they have raided and what they have done. Just a highlight. Hardly 10% are politicians or people belonging to the opposition parties. The remaining 90% are other aspects. Some of them may be from the ruling party, some of them may be from the administrative wing, some of them may be from the police sections, some of them from business areas who are not linked to any political parties, but they are doing all those cases. But what is projected in the media that ED is being used to tame and threaten the opposition parties? So what about the 85% of things that ED is raiding? That doesn't come in the news. So it's selective reporting. Like you don't have to lie. You can say a half truth and get away with it.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. Be economical with the truth.
Yes, that's what is happening in the media. I'm not saying that's what is the fact. But people at the ground here, when you interact with people, talk to people, and they see things around you, they see change. They see change. Previously, if I needed a license, I had to go and talk to an agent, and I'll get in one day, I will get everything if I pay them money. If I go directly, it will take 6 months and still I will not get a license. Now everything is online.
Right.
So they only charge for doing that online data filling exercise, which you're willing to pay. Because they also have a survival requirement, so you can pay, or you can do it yourself. That's no issue. So this, what is the plank on which that other political party can take over the ruling? How can they sway the voters? They can't. They find it very difficult because none of them are saying how they are going to improve the economy. They are not saying how they are going to reduce the employment. They are not saying how they are going to increase the per capita income or how they are going to improve any of the things that these people have done. They have given free houses, they have given free gas, they have given free toilets. Yeah. They have done, they are giving 6,000 rupees for below poverty line every year. directly into their account.
And medical.
And free ration, free medical insurance. So they have done all of that using the available infrastructure with the previous dispensation setup. They made the best use of it. Now, do you hear any of the political parties in opposition talking about any of this? If they were talking, then you wouldn't hear about these things about this guy being national human rights and state human rights, talking about this case and that case. What happens when there is a shooting in US? It's a news for a day.
Right.
The political parties don't fight each other against that. They only talk about the National Rifle Association, and that politics plays because it's at a different level, because
Right.
there the political funding happens.
Right.
So those people fight only at that level. They don't fight at the ground level about the person who has shot, the person who got shot, and things like that. What
Right.
are we having here? We are having about the person who was shot, what was his religion, who was he affiliated to, why he was it national human rights, was it a right violation? He had 100 FIRs against him.
Yes. In
At least
40 years.
100 people have registered a complaint against him. What about their human rights? It's the same like, when army personnel were being thrown stones at in Kashmir and they had to retaliate, they would talk about the human rights of the people who were injured. They were attacking army personnel.
Yeah.
What does the country do? Lay down the arms
Yeah.
and say, okay, hit me.
True.
But that's what was being portrayed in the media.
Right.
Same thing is happening here because it's vested interest. They need some political. UP has a big percentage of backward classes and caste dynamics, as well as Muslim population, Hindu population. All of it is there. And those are the dynamics on which the political parties play. Now, the problem that has happened is BJP is playing those politics as well as development politics.
Right.
And because they are not in power, they are not in a position to counter the development politics. They can only counter these politics. So this will become news item. There will be a lot of people who will talk about this, who will bring out different aspects and try to make as much inroad as possible. So as it goes along, you will find a lot of things coming from both sides, talking about each other. Because what is now happening is the current ruling dispensation is playing a very good game, if you look at it objectively, in the sense that when they make a case for people like Atiq and others, these people point out their appeasement methodology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it gives them brownie points for the ruling dispensation.
See,
The
this
more
is
they do
exactly,
it,
yeah, this is exactly why I wanted to have this meeting with you guys, because the coloring and the texture, which is under the whole thing, is not visible to people who just read CNN and BBC and stuff like this. So it's a rich texture under it and a whole lot of things. And Shailesh, when you look at what Kumar was saying, I mean, you have seen how it was in the last 60 years, that is pre-2014 and after 2014. So what does it look like from your vantage point? I mean, when you look at in context with the controversy that we are discussing right now.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I would like to bring you back to the question you had raised earlier, about this particular Atiq Ahmed's case and how it is being portrayed as if it's a human rights violation. Now, earlier, before Modi and Yogi came in, there used to be a nexus of 4 different pressure groups in UP, especially UP, Bihar, and certain other states, which are also commonly called as the Bimaru states in India. Bimar stands for the sick ones. So they were sick, and they also stand, it's an acronym for Bihar and Madhya Pradesh and Odisha and Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. And these Bimaru states, mainly UP, had this nexus between the bureaucracy, the police, the judiciary, the politicians, and the mafia. Of course, sometimes even the industrialists used to be on their side, because they would want to keep the mafia and the politicians in their good books. But the nexus was mainly between these five parties: the police, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, politicians, and the mafia. And they were all happily married to each other and exploiting the society. And this is how they were giving tickets to mafia dons to be MLAs and MPs, and the mafia dons in turn would do two things: one, get the votes for the party, and number two, get money. The extortion racket was the biggest. It could be kidnapping, it could be just extortion from the businesses or from lawyers and doctors and other professionals. And it was a big party for all these 4 or 5 different vested interest groups. To break this was thought to be absolutely impossible for anyone, because invariably the politicians would lose the money flow, which none of the parties could afford to, because the parties have to win elections. Elections were won by distributing money, and so it was a kind of vicious cycle. I am absolutely thrilled at this particular development of Yogi's 5-6 years. I am really surprised how he has managed to maintain control over the police, which was thought to be totally sold out, to motivate the bureaucracy, which was thought to be sold out, to bypass the judiciary, which is known to be sold out, and also to manage the gundas from both the sides of the political spectrum. See, as your brother rightly said, that this particular menace was all pervasive. All the parties had this particular issue. So BJP is not really a white positions black. It is just a shade of gray. So yes, there was this particular issue, but Yogi has managed to really get it under control. That is one part of the story. As far as the portrayal by these foreign media is concerned, I would just like to point out to you certain statistics. In 2021, 532 shootouts in US. In 2022, there were 735 shootout incidences in USA. Okay. This year has started with a bang, and I think in the last 4 months almost, we have had more than, I think, 70 instances of shootouts. Now, it is so funny that every day a couple of persons are getting killed. The statistics says that every day a person is getting killed in USA, and the chances of you getting killed in US are 10 times higher than you being in Uttar Pradesh. And in spite of this particular fact, all the statistics are in open. If CNN thinks that it is unsafe to be in Uttar Pradesh than in USA, say Texas or such states, it is absolutely mockery of news reporting. And that is very, very pertinent point, that they refuse to look at their own violence as violence, but they simply say that it is freedom of choice, freedom of choice to have weapons, and freedom of expression to kill someone. Okay. And when it is, say, someone killing a goon who has 100 FIRs against him in Uttar Pradesh, they treat it as if it's a human rights violation. It is really extremely funny. So these 2 points I wanted to make. Now, the second question which you mentioned, what is the difference between the previous dispensation and Modi governance? Obviously, there is a sea change, and it is the implementation. That's it. Implementation. Because nothing succeeds like success, and that is only if you pursue this effort behind it. What Modi has done is he has diagnosed the problem in the first couple of years. So 14, 15, I think he just spent time in analyzing the problem. And the problem I'm talking about is the macro level. So the economy needed to be revived. Only when economy is revived, government gets revenue. Only when government gets revenue, government can spend it on 3 or 4 major basics of a nation. That is infrastructure, law and order, social services like health, education, and governance. Fourth will be, of course, the ease of doing business. And fifth, and the most important, which is the lifeline or bloodline of an economy, is the banking financial services or banking system. Now, banking system was in doldrums. You must have read that we had huge NPAs. All the banks were giving out loans left and right and center to all the politicians and their stooges. And that is how they were under severe crisis. So all these 5 things Modi decided to improve. And the ED action and the CBI actions which you see is also related or connected to the demonetization.
Right.
I'll tell you how.
Yeah.
Unless there is a fear in the mind of the individuals that if they don't pay taxes, they will be hanged. People don't pay taxes. And especially when you have a system of last 70 years when people could get scot-free without paying taxes, either by bribing the inspector or by intermittent declaration of a scheme known as VDIS, that is Voluntary Declaration of Income Scheme, where
Amnesty.
people could just amnesty. So he instilled fear, like Yogi instilled fear in the minds of mafia. Yogi instilled fear in the minds of citizen and businessmen, and also the bureaucracy, that if you do not pay taxes, you will be hanged. And these 2 things, apart from, of course, the implementation of GST and IBC, and of course, UPI, everything has been a game changer, because the economic formalization took place because of UPI, and also formalization because of GST. And this is how the revenue stream started coming in. And that is how the infrastructure pipeline has been laid out. And that is how the businesses were built. And that is how, again, the revenues came back. So it's, again, it's in
Virtuous
circles.
circle. It's
Absolutely.
an upward spiral instead of a downward spiral.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's well explained, Shailesh, because if you look at another dimension that it comes to me based on what you said, is that the common man face problems that he files income tax, but he can't get return in time. He has to pay some commission and kickback. He wants to get a passport. He has to go through touts. He wants to have the police to come and check. For that also, he has got to go around the places. All those small things. You want to buy a ticket for long distance and you have to hassle with the touts in the counter. Now, all those things are gone because of immediate automation of tax returns. Nobody has problems with income tax, automation of railway services and everything, and also vigilance, consequences for wrong actions, consequences for breaking the law, making some examples. All those things have made things easier for the common man. Corruption may still be there, but it's at a level where it does not directly impact the common man. So at least the common man sees some relief. And as you mentioned, both of you mentioned execution. I remember, I think it was 1990, around 92, I bought, Hansa and I bought our first flat in Thana in a place where they said, we are going to get a ring rail. The property prices will improve and it's coming very soon. And then we bought the property and 25 years later, we sold the property, the rail never came. We never heard about what happened to the project. And we had heard of a lot of projects being flagged off, a flyover flagged off, and nothing happens after that. But of late, I'm seeing every year, 15, 20 huge projects being dedicated to the people. Highway inaugurated, flyover inaugurated, railways inaugurated, airports inaugurated. Things are happening. And also electrification of villages, 100% electrification of villages, toilets for every house, water to every village. 60 years after independence, it had not happened. It all happened in the last 10 years. Then the question is, is it not execution? And if the common man does not understand this, however illiterate they might be, and they get swayed by small gifts like a bottle of liquor for vote or a television set for vote, then they have it coming for them. That's how I would think. So those things are not reflected, because in the media out here, we had seen big pictures of Shanghai with all those skyscrapers and the bullet train and all those things. That glitz that China got from international media doesn't seem to have got for that doesn't seem to have benefited Indian achievement so far. Because whenever I visit India, every 1 year or 2 years, I see new flyovers, I see a swanking new airport, I see new infrastructure, more cleanliness and other things. None of that has been portrayed in the media that I see out here. And I know that things are happening because I visit regularly, but I am distressed that most people who are seeing this media have a vision of India like there's a snake charmer and the cobra is dancing, or there's an elephant and there are potholes and cows. We are not able to get past that. And how do we bring that to most international audiences? That's the reason why I thought, let's have this discussion, talk to you guys who are already there on the ground level. You have seen all those changes. So it's been very stimulating. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add in the topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about this particular bias against India, especially by the Western media. And you mentioned that it is not against China. So I'll tell you my analysis of that. What happened during the 60s and 70s is that Mao decided that he wanted to build the nation. And he shook hands with American president. I think Nixon was there at that time. And that is how, India and China both were kind of neglected, except that India was definitely and firmly in the Russian or rather Soviet hands. So
but
India
that also
was
has its background, right? Because
yeah, that's true.
The West,
But
instead of
Western-
supporting the biggest democracy, were supporting the other side, which was a dictatorship.
Yeah. But then that is how the Western media's bias against India started during 60s and 70s. But China was neutral that time. China was not in the Russian camp or Soviet camp. And Mao decided to shake hands with Americans. And during the 80s and 90s, firmly they were, welcoming Western capital. India was still a restricted economy, and that is what the Westerners did not like. And the media houses of West are not at all independent. They are basically towing the line of the government. So they were totally against India. Now, what has happened is, of course, in the last 20, 30 years, a lot of water has flown under the bridge. But the bias has been reinforced by two things. Number one, the kind of funding which China has been giving to a lot of media houses. And China obviously runs its own agenda, and they don't want a competition within their backyard. And they know that all the advantages which China enjoyed during the 70s, 80s, or the 3 decades when they grew really fast, almost in double digits. 8 to 11% was the growth rate of China during those decades. India has the capability and similar kind of demographics. So obviously they don't want this to happen. That is one part. And second part is somehow Western media has also been against India because they feel that minorities are persecuted in India, which includes Christians. So that is how they have had a very intense negative bias against a Hindu nationalist government, as they describe. It is obviously, I don't agree with this definition, but that is the reason why I feel they have this kind of extreme bias against Modi and BJP government.
Yeah, you're right. Because English is a beautiful language in which you can have semantics. And without saying something, you can convey the feeling of it, right? It's like in the CNN article, which I saw this morning about this Atiq Ahmed murder, they were saying that Hindu nationalist government and it alluded to persecution of minorities. But the problem is that the the fact remains that out here in the US, right, as well as for that matter in Canada, the natives, right, the Native Americans whom Columbus mistakenly called Indians, the Native Americans are in a very bad shape. Their children were taken by the church, and in Canada we are finding bodies near those institutions, and there is a lot of demand for apology and some kind of reconciliation. Native women are still getting disappeared, and they are found dead, and those cases are not being solved. So that's another problem which is going on out here. So all these things are happening. And also, for that matter, African Americans are having a tough time because they are being racially profiled. And there is the thing is, if somebody was to be holier than thou, then they had to be perfect. That's not the case. But as they say, the victors write the history. So right now, I think there is a kind of conflict because the past victors are becoming weak. And the new players are trying to write the script, and this turmoil is going to continue for a while. And I think media will go to whomever pays the money. And Shailesh, as you said, right, though the media, you're saying Western media is paid by the government, I would say BBC probably will be in that category. But out here, we just had this Dominion versus Fox News case, where it has become very clear, because Rupert Murdoch himself, the CEO, I mean, the big guy for Fox, who owns the Fox Corporation, he in the deposition said that it's all about the greens. This basically means money. So whoever is giving them money, that's where they would go. And that's why they even bent the truth, and they have accepted it allegedly in the settlement that has happened just today. I think it happened yesterday, I think. And during the settlement, they have accepted that some wrong statements were made. And I thought Dominion would just push this through so that the January 6th can be resolved in the court instead of in the public opinion. But I think Fox has gone free, and it's going to be back to the same games. So basically, that part of the establishment has shown that nation and other things don't matter to these press entities. As far as they are concerned, it's a 24/7 business, and you need to attract eyes, and you need to hold them, and then the advertisers will pay. And you want that to happen. So that's one dynamic. The other dynamic is the more eyes that you attract, you can charge the cable companies for carrying your programming. So these are the twin revenue sources. And this kind of a 24/7 OPM has got people addicted. So it's like the vote banks in India. If you have a viewer bank, if you can keep them satisfied and constantly feed them the OPM, and then they are hooked, you're getting the revenues. And everything else doesn't matter as long as this block is in your hand. And it's up to those blocks to realize that the nation is being destroyed, economy is being destroyed, our country's forefront position in the world is being compromised because of all of these things. If they don't realize that, then this media is going to go to another country and start the whole thing again, wherever a prosperous country is there, and get the money. They have no loyalty to any country or any constitution or anything. So all regimes, they have to compete in this space and survive despite all these things, because commercialization of media has taken place. That's how I look at it.
I would like to add something on this.
Yeah.
If you look at how it's happening here, there are two aspects. One, I agree fully with Shailesh that it's the money, where they get the money. But then if you look at the Indian media and also the foreign media to that extent, the current dispensation doesn't believe in investing money in media because it doesn't give them the returns. So even in India, if you look at the press, 90% is against the ruling dispensation.
Right.
90% of the press is talking against the ruling dispensation, which primarily means they're not getting the money. Number one. Number two, they had a lot of perks, the journalists and other media personnel, in the previous dispensation, which they're not getting now. So that itself started a crib session and negativity about the ruling dispensation. That could have been addressed by investing in media by the current dispensation to get them to talk in their side. But they have not done that for the past 8 years. They do it only when it suits them. If you look at the ruling dispensation, they don't give interviews, they don't do it unless there is an election in 1 year's time.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't come in front of the media. They use the
They are
media.
busy delivering.
They are busy delivering, number one. But what has happened is this has made media a point of ridicule for their consumers. If you look at the overall level of revenue generation for media, it has gone down
Yes.
simply because people are not relying on it. I know many people who have stopped newspapers. They only get their news fixes online, either from YouTubers or others. They don't even look at media simply because
Yeah.
such fantastic information is being shared, which is so far away from the truth that people are not interested in wasting their time in that. So they have become a point of ridicule. That is one aspect of it about the money. So you have the opposition parties and others investing in them. So they keep
Right.
following them. You had this case wherein, media houses would talk to somebody exactly at 9 o'clock every day to get some bites. And whatever they say, they will rush to every other political party and say, what do you have to say about it? That is
Right.
not journalism.
No.
That is not journalism. Journalism is to find out something and share it with the audience. It's
Right.
not, he said this, what do you think about it? Okay, you said this, what do you think about it? That's not
It's
journalism.
infotainment.
It's no longer journalism as we knew it. Other aspect of it, coming back to what you talked about, China being shown glossy and other things, look at UAE for that matter. I have been there for so long. It's not that countries have negativity. Every country has positives, every country has negatives. In India, you have freedom of press for them to report those negatives. No action is taken. You have so many news people within India raising so many things about the ruling dispensation, the prime minister, the president, and others. It's in the news, very openly in the news. It's been debated in news channels. Is action taken? No. Somebody who feels aggrieved by this goes to the court, and then the court takes action. And if somebody goes who's aggrieved, and if the court is taking action, then he has a case for getting aggrieved. That's why the court
Right.
decided in his favor or against him.
Right.
Correct? So let's keep that in mind. So what is happening now is those places where you're talking about where only the positives were shown, even internally, negatives are not shown.
Right.
Anybody who comes out with it, it's not easy to get it out.
Yeah, and as long as you are able to see the negatives, there is scope for improvement, and things get better. Otherwise, the negative things will remain and grow.
The basic fact that you are saying negative shows the freedom of expression,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is what you are talking about.
Yes.
You show me only positives about a place. Where is the freedom of expression of the negative?
Right.
Here we have to find out the freedom of expression of the positive.
True.
That's
True.
where the challenge has become here. There is so much of freedom of expression. Everybody highlights the negative aspect, and there is no restraint on that.
Yeah.
If somebody is aggrieved, go take a proper constitutional mechanism, go file a case, and then it has to go properly.
Yeah, that brings me to another point that I heard. I want to know whether this is true or false. I believe that Modi has kind of instituted a kind of rule that a file or a particular transaction, that is, he set up service level standards. If it doesn't move through the system and get resolved within a particular number of days, then it gets escalated. And there is a helpline where if people complain, then it's taken care of. That's how he's bringing accountability in the system, so that if somebody went with a complaint, then something would definitely happen instead of it sitting in the files. Is that true, or is a kind of rumor that I'm hearing?
There are 2 points I would like to mention here. Number one is that a very good friend of mine from Pune, who happened to be a doctor, and that later he appeared for civil services and became a IAS officer, is incidentally posted in PMO right now.
Right.
And I have the privilege of talking to him sometimes over a cup of tea whenever he comes to Pune. And I have heard praises from him, the way the PMO has been functioning. And he says that the PM works almost 12 to 16 hours a day. So the PMO has to run ahead of him, because you have to brief the PM and also complete the task assigned to the PMO by the PM. So they
Right.
have this double task, and he says that we have to be ahead of him. So we almost have to work 24 hours by 7. Only difference is that PMO has a staff of about 350 personnel who are highly educated. I
Right.
mean, we are talking about staff which is like all IS cadre or technocrats
Right.
and consultants. So obviously we are talking about a huge think tank which is assisting the PM. That is one part of the story. Second part is, of course, when was it last time you heard that a simple tweet to the Minister of External Affairs rescued people from various countries, including Sudan or Afghanistan or Ukraine or any of the places on the wretched places on the world terrain. So or when is it that you heard a prime minister making a pitch every month on social topics, and the theme is on 2 lines. Number one is about the social evils which need to be eradicated, and number two is the social icons. And these social icons are not Sachin Tendulkar or some film personality. These social icons are the grassroots workers, perhaps one farmer or one craftsman or one a person who is doing some kind of social service, teacher, or a person who is working for prostitutes. And he makes it a point to bring these idols and makes their story public in every Mann Ki Baat. Every
Right.
Mann Ki Baat, he has been doing this, and
So
the
basically, Man Ki
impact
Baat
is
is a program that the Prime Minister does. It's a podcast from the Prime Minister.
yes, and
Yes.
it has revived the radio in India. No one thought that radio could have such fantastic, pervasive, especially audience in villages, and it has been a huge success. But the point I'm trying to make is, even for Mann Ki Baat, he invites topics and suggestions. So right now, a simple tweet by a single passenger stranded somewhere in London or New York can move the government. So forget about the files you mentioned. The
Yes.
files are moving definitely, but even tweets are moving the government.
Very nice. Very nice.
Further,
So,
add to
yeah.
that, to your
Yeah.
specific question, they have actually made it mandatory for many of the citizen-facing government bodies to give a service standard very clearly and display it.
Right.
It's not only to have a service standard, but to display it publicly, wherein it says, if you come for, say, X work, it will take 15 days. If you come for this, it will take 2 days. It will take 3 days. It will take 7 days. Whatever it is, there is a service standard which is mentioned, and it says what will happen during that time. And if it doesn't happen, you have a cause to complain.
Right.
And it's all online.
Nice.
So
Yes,
if you
digital
go to,
India.
it's digital India. So if you look at any government body, they will say what their service standards are. Like, for example, if you go to a municipal corporation website, it will say what all services they give. And then you go into each of those services, they will say what are the service standards. So if you make a complaint, something has to happen. And government is actually giving services which they were supposed to give.
Right. That's the important thing. They were supposed to give. We never saw this before.
Because see, for example, a simple thing, if you look at the kind of complexes you have today, you have a drainage problem. 15 years back, if you had a drainage problem, you would get a plumber, pay him money what he asks, and resolve the drainage problem. Today, you go to a municipal corporation, give them a letter. Within a day, they will send somebody to look at it. What is the drainage problem? Because drainage is a government border responsibility. Yes, if you have to spend something, they'll tell you what you have to do to spend, but they will come, they will deliver the first service level so that, they know what is happening there.
Very nice.
So
I would like to add here that
Yeah.
in Pune, there is a app which is known as Pune Connect. And this
Pune
Connect app, there are several sections. I mean, you can just Google it and you will get that app and you can go through it. Out of those 10-15 sections, one is, of course, the civic amenities, like the garbage. So if you see a garbage in your area, or leaking drainage in your area, you can just go to the app, go to that section, click a snap and upload it. And next day, or perhaps the same day, you will get a call. Of course, the app also takes your location
GPS.
automatically. Yes. So your location where you click the snap is already uploaded. And that is how they know which exactly place this particular garbage is dumped, and they will clear it. So the point I'm trying to come to is, even an application need not be sent physically. This particular app is doing it via digital, and many of the government departments, not only at the corporation level, but at a national level, many of the departments have been digitized. For example, all the courts in the last 5 years have been digitized. So if you have a case in a court, it could be civil court, it could be high court, it could be Supreme Court. You just enter the case number in the national portal, and you can get a status of that particular case on a daily basis. So I recently had this experience when I was again a POA holder, the power of attorney holder for someone who is staying outside. And I went to the courts, and I was doing this job for maybe 6-8 months. And every day, not exactly at the end of the day, but maybe the next day, you will get a status update. They will have to enter the data. So immediately, if there is an order, it will be uploaded in the system. So that is how the digital India has been working. And I remember people ridiculing it, saying that, is Modi planning to give laptops to 100 crore people? And now I see how the big picture has unfolded. And I'll tell you, the real difficult part is that a lot of land records, which is extremely cumbersome, a humongous task, because there are I think 57,000 villages in India.
Yeah.
And every village has some land records, right? There will be at least 100 people, and each one will have a small piece of land. So all those have been digitized. And that is one of the most incredible achievements of this government, which sometimes doesn't get highlighted, or most people do not know.
And I would like to use this opportunity, segue, to tie up everything back together. Now, this Atiq Ahmed, what he was doing was he was grabbing land, extorting people, grabbing land, taking their property away, right? And all these kind of elements have problem exactly because earlier law and order infrastructure was there, but it was not being deployed. It was not being executed. And now with digitization, the same thing has been enforced. And in this, all the elements are not getting the oxygen that they need. They are not able to blatantly commit crimes. And there is audit trail. If they manage to get something, there is an audit trail. Like they can't just take the land. The record is going in there, who they took from, what price, what date. All those things are there. I believe now the government is working along with the police in Uttar Pradesh to identify all the people from whom Atiq had extorted the properties, and they're planning to give it back to all those people and restore the original title. So this kind of brings us back to the end. It's all tying it all back nicely together. So my conclusion basically is that, regardless of whatever the media does outside, the government in India has already put infrastructure in place, a digital infrastructure in place, to put a grid around all the law and order ordinances and everything, so that they can be monitored on an ongoing basis with service level agreements and deliver good governance to people. So regardless of all the noise and distortion, this is all virtual. The ground level, the people are feeling the gains and they know who has bought the gains to them. And people are refusing to be divided on the lines of religion, caste, and other things. And the politics has now been turned on its head. Instead of vote bank politics, it is development politics. What are you going to deliver to me? Are you going to deliver better than this government? You had 60 years, you were not able to do it. How can we trust you? And that's why they can't get into the area of debating the government on policies and actual deliverance, because the government and people already know you had 60 years, you never delivered anything. So I guess a new breed of politics and new government has to come. One of my fear is that, I mean, for talking in another Zoom call, one of my fear is many people from other parties are getting into BJP. And I hope they don't get diluted and they don't become one of those parties that get spoiled by all these rats coming into the ship and digging a hole. But that's a topic for another day. So Shailesh and Kumar, thank you guys so much for joining me and actually helping this young channel, because you brought a lot of good points, and I hope our viewers also like this. And we have more topics to discuss in future, and provided you guys have time to give, I would like to have you guys back again. Thanks a
for
lot.
inviting us. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot for joining.
Thanks, Raj. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Take care.